in my view, the school has uh, has the school is like a meteor in the sky on a summer night blasting through. It was bright and it was shiny and it was exciting to see, and then it burnt out. And I think that that's what happened with Purnell, and it happened because I would remind you all that we were way ahead of our time. We were talking and doing things that nobody was doing and they hadn't thought of doing. And ours was a very progressive view that was learner-centered. That language didn't exist then. Nobody talked about learner-centered or anything of the kind. We just did it. Well, now everybody does it. All of the literature about education today and about teaching and learning is about just that. It's about student-centered. Find out where that child is. Find out how that brain is working. How is that person learning best? And feed that part of the person. We talked then about self-confidence and a sense of purpose, a sense of self. Lit used to talk about self-worth, as we all did. Well, now everybody talks about self-worth. It's finally dawned on all of us that this is probably the thing that makes the difference. That's probably why people can succeed. And when they don't because they don't have that sense of self. So what is our competition? Well, Purnell is now competing with all of the co-educational schools that say the same thing. Everybody's got a special program for differentiated learning. The critical mass of people who are willing to spend $73,000 to send a girl to the foothills of New Jersey for a boarding school is ever shrinking. And the competition for that money is huge, a lot because there aren't a whole lot of people who want to spend that kind of money. And then those who do aren't prepared to consider women's education as being at the forefront. Those schools that continue are also schools that were founded 125 years ago, and they have a lot of money in the bank. Purnell's success in terms of its financial experience is there to look. I mean, that was a dairy farm when I first went there. It was just stopped operating as a dairy farm, but the barn stank of the dairy. So it's all about building the school and creating the place, which for other people was money in the bank and endowment.
Is Purnell really 73,000 a year now? It was?
Yeah. Oh, yes, very definitely. So I think what happened is that the critical mass shrank. And there was so much competition for the critical mass that there was no way to escape it. Now, in full disclosure, I was on the board until about 7 years ago when I resigned because I had proposed at the time that we close the school. And I said at the time that I felt that this was the inevitable consequence of the flow and the movement of the world and education, and that we ought to celebrate the exciting 50 years that existed, recognize what had happened as being remarkable, and close the doors, because otherwise I felt we would shrink and blow away. I'm not saying this because I want to say that I was right, which I was, but that's incidental. There are 37 children in the school today. Yeah. And from the time of 1979, when we left and Bill and Judy came in, admissions was a huge problem then. And it continued to be, and the enrollment continued to drop from 125, which was the halcyon years, down to the 100 and the teens, and then 110, and then 105, and then 98, and then 92, and it was in an inexorable race to the bottom of where we are now. Not because the program had changed, because I have to tell you, when I was on the board and we would go and see what was happening in the classroom, the program was knockout, absolutely sensational. And the kids were thriving. it isn't about the fact that they brought in the wrong students, or it isn't about the fact that they didn't have the right faculty, or it isn't about the fact that the philosophy changed. I mean, the stability of the school really continued in the main very much as it had always been. There'd been some bad governance issues. People weren't minding the store at certain times, but that isn't why the school imploded. The school imploded because there aren't any people who will send their kids to the school for $73,000 a year. So they've had to close, they've run out of money, and now you circle the wagons, see to it that everybody is taken care of, and then that's that. So I really would dispel any kind of sense that there is something negative behind what has occurred. It's really more about life in the fast lane, and it's about change, which is what characterizes all of our lives in the world. And we're living through a monumental period of change historically, and we were just a part of it.